Hi there and welcome to another video on the Dream House. Today we're going to be talking about the themes and symbols that are prominent in this novel. So the first one I'd like to discuss is the past, the theme of the past. It is something that is essential to the storyline. I think it's interesting that although the story takes place in the present, it's still all about the past. And I think we can see that different characters have different opinions on the past. So Patricia's idea of the past is encapsulated in this quote. In my experience, backward glances only crick the neck. And Looksmart's pushing Patricia to look at the past and to reflect, and she refuses to do that. I think to an extent that she is forced to, but she doesn't actually look back properly and address the past. The past is something she puts behind her and she just she tries to move on from it. Whereas Looksmart, on the other hand, he wants to confront the past. He wants to get closure regarding the past. And I think Beauty is a character who's interesting in this because she seems to be similar to Patricia in the fact that she wants to bury the past. She doesn't talk about her sister. She just continues with the present. She sort of leaves the past behind. At least that's my interpretation of it. But the Dream House as a whole is very much centered on the past because it's centered around apartheid South Africa and what happened in the past, and showing us that post-apartheid South Africa is still influenced by the apartheid legacy. So the past cannot just be taken away. So even though we're living in the post-apartheid era, we still have the remnants of the past that influence our people, influence our ways, influence everything about our lives. The next theme is the subjectivity of memory, and this is incredibly central in the novel. So let me just read you these quotes that I think really encapsulate this theme. Looksmart has his own story. At least that's how she remembers it. You must find the truth for yourself. This is central to the novel, as I said earlier. Patricia sees or thinks of her relationship with Looksmart in one way, and Looksmart views that exact same relationship and those same memories in a completely different way. Even the story with Grace, once again, we have the subjectivity of memory. Beauty knows the truth, or her version of the truth, which we are led to believe is the actual truth. And then we have Patricia's version of the truth, and then we have Looksmart's version of the truth. And there's this idea with Beauty saying that she won't tell Looksmart the truth at the end of the novel. I think there's a sort of comment that says that memory is always going to be subjective. There's never going to be an objective truth. And I think this is really interesting in terms of the novel and its characters, but also in terms of the general context of the Dream House. Right, the next one is really important. It's a long one. I've put a whole bunch into this one sort of theme. Unequal relationships and the patriarchal nature of colonialism, racism, and apartheid. So South Africa is, he experienced colonialism just like the whole of Africa, and then on top of that there was apartheid. So we have injustice over injustice, and we have these really unequal relationships that are played out in the novel. This is a strange land we live in. After all this time, you still want to be the mother, and me, I must still be something like your child. But that relationship, it can have no place in the future of this country. He is an intruder in his own land, condemned to arriving at places where he will never belong. So these are talking about the colonialism, racism, apartheid. So Looksmart feels like a stranger in his own land, and that is what apartheid sought to do. It sought to make people of color feel as though they weren't a part of the country. And these quotes really draw attention to the fact that even in post-apartheid South Africa, work still needs to be done to make sure that the citizens of South Africa feel like they are citizens, because they are. So that's really important, and this is what Looksmart comes to confront at the farm. He comes to confront Patricia and Richard and say, this is bizarre, this is unethical, this is an injustice. I also think that it's important in terms of the subjectivity of memory, because Patricia views her relationship with Looksmart in a really positive way, that she had a good impact on him. But as Looksmart says here, there's this idea of that she has to be the mother and he has to be the child, that he can't think for himself, and that's extremely problematic. We also have to look at the patriarchy, I think, in terms of Patricia and Richard, because Richard still has this immense power over the house, even though he's suffering from dementia. And as we've discussed in a previous video, it calls into question whether he actually is suffering from dementia to the extent in which he makes it out to be. But there is certainly an unequal relationship, and patriarchy drives Patricia's narrative as well. She feels stuck. She feels this is what she needs to do. Which we'll get to in the next slide. So here we go. We have the feeling stuck theme. And we have, I think, Patricia, Look Smart, and Beauty all feel stuck in one way or another. So I only married him because I was pregnant. That's Patricia. She feels stuck in her life. She has not enjoyed her life for a very long time. And she feels like she actually can't do anything about it. She's that stuck. She's that stuck in her situation. She's trapped. Look Smart. Nothing has changed. People like her are still sitting in their houses. People like him are still looking in. So he feels frustrated, angry, and hatred towards post-apartheid South Africa that hasn't had enough change that it's supposed to have had. As he says here, nothing has changed. He feels stuck. He feels trapped in his own country and in what's happening around him. I think Beauty also feels stuck to an extent. She continues to serve Patricia even after the brutal murder of her sister, and she can't, or she doesn't, I don't know if she can't, but she doesn't seem to recognize her power, and she gives in to this idea of being trapped, and she just settles. That's my opinion of it anyway. Beauty is such a complex character. You can see it from many different angles. Right, very important theme here. Revenge, pain, and hatred. And I mean, this is all encapsulated in Look Smart, definitely. We can see that easily. But I think that we have pain in Patricia as well. So here's some quotes that are important. Coming here out of hate. He has come here to witness the resurgence of his hatred and her fear. So Look Smart, the whole novel is about Look Smart coming back to confront Patricia, to seek revenge from Patricia and Richard for what he has endured, or the injustice that he has endured, and what what his version of the truth is. And he wants to confront them. He wants to burden them with that story and with his anger. I think it's interesting though, because he comes with so much anger, and this he wants to get revenge, but I think Patricia doesn't give him the opportunity to actually take revenge. She's so caught up in her own life and her own trappedness that she refuses to actually give him the thing that he wants, which is this to see her in pain. I don't know, you could disagree with me, because at some stages she is in pain, and she is in physical pain, which represents her spiritual pain and how she feels trapped. But I think that unfortunately Look Smart doesn't get the revenge that he sought out at the beginning of the novel. Okay, so the teacup. This is an interesting symbol. The cup is the first thing she had deliberately stolen from a miss. I think this teacup is a representation of colonialism, of racism, of not racism but apartheid, and that symbol of power. And by stealing it, by taking it, Beauty is sort of reclaiming that power. So I think there's like two sides to this. So the fact that Beauty takes it from Patricia, I think that shows her resistance, and it may be seen as passive resistance, but it's certainly resistance. Like, she's not just giving in to everything that she is told to do. And that's interesting about Beauty, is she seems very passive at some stages, but then at the same time she does something like this, or she doesn't go to Patricia when she calls her. She waits for Patricia to call her like 3 times. So we have these little hints that Beauty does stand up for herself and stand up to Patricia and Richard. On the other hand, the fact that she's stolen this teacup that represents oppression, I think that speaks to this idea of a dream house as well. There's a recreation of this oppressive symbol. So that's something to think about. The idea of a dream house and what that represents. So I find the title of this novel very interesting because the idea of the dream house is sort of a secondary theme in my opinion. It doesn't shine clearly as through as something like memory or revenge, but perhaps I'm missing something. But the idea of a dream house is quite important. So let's read the quote. It didn't take long to see that the new houses that were being built across the farm were much the same as the first house. So Patricia's house that looked smart, I wouldn't say he grew up in it, but he was familiar with it, and now he's taken over the farm and he's reproducing the same house all over. Yet he expresses this immense hatred towards Patricia and everything that she stands for. So surely that would include her house. But yet he chooses to recreate this dream house, and it's this idea of, yes, we have come out of this oppressive regime, but at the same time we're still cultivating it, maybe unconsciously, maybe consciously. So it's this idea of hatred towards the oppressor, but also wanting to mimic certain aspects. So that's quite an interesting paradox to think about. And yes, things left unsaid and the inability to confront regret. So we discussed this a little bit when we spoke about revenge and how Patricia sort of refuses to give Looksmart the revenge that he seeks. I think lots of things are left unsaid between the two. She would like to tell him clearly that he was like her son, because they are both unable to look back and to see their perhaps mistakes, or not even mistakes, but to view something from the other's perspective. So lots of things are left unsaid. I think another quote here would be the last line of the novel where they wave to each other in the car. There's nothing more to say. They both are unable or unwilling to actually dig deeper and to confront things that they don't want to confront. And I think specifically with Patricia, she does not want to feel regret. She is, a very bitter person, and she's unable, or she's unwilling, to actually go back to dissect her version of the truth and to confront any mistakes that she's made. And lastly, the mist and the sun. She draws back the curtain to reveal the mist. The sun is shining through the cloud as she climbs into the car. So this novel takes place over like an evening, like a single night that goes to the morning. So we start off with this mist. So it's foggy, it's unclear what's happening. There's a sort of, there's a fogginess to the storyline. We don't know what's going to happen because a lot of things are going to be revealed during the course of the evening. And then at the end, the sun is shining through the cloud as she climbs into the car. And that tells us that things have somewhat been resolved. So the weather reflects the plot of the novel. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that this was helpful. Please see the description for the PDF notes. Thank you.